Yes, now you can delete that comment that you already wrote and you can shut the fuck up and actually watch the video. Alright, so I know this topic has been beaten to death ever since we first got Frontiers gameplay, and I'm not here to beat it to death any further. That's actually the reason why I'm making this video, because I still get comments about it because it comes up in critics talking about the game, and when I respond, it's obviously going to get mentioned as, again, people are talking about it in their reviews of the game or their impressions of the demo. So it's a conversation that's going to keep coming up. So I'm making this video to address this topic once and for all so that people don't misconstrue what I've been saying this whole time, right? That way when someone makes a rash assumption about me, you can just point them to this video and be like, no, what you're saying is wrong. Prem doesn't think this, Prem doesn't think that. So we're gonna get to this topic right now, but if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure to subscribe. We are trying to hit 100,000 subscribers and hopefully 7,000 subscribers before Sonic Frontiers comes out. So yes, the topic of momentum, or as we like to call it, pinball physics, essentially Sonic being able to like build up momentum, up inclines and down inclines and up rails and down rails and things like that. Uphill you go slower, downhill you go faster. Whether you curl into a ball or not, you know what I'm talking about. You've played the classics, you played Sonic Adventure 1, you played Sonic Adventure 2. And the topic of this video is, can Sonic Frontiers be fun or good without momentum? And I say yes. And I've said this before, but again, people keep misconstruing me. They keep going around saying that I think the game is bad because of lack of momentum. That's not true at all. I love Sonic 06. That game is devoid of momentum. Come on. Even games like Unleashed and Generations, which do have momentum built into them, don't revolve heavily around momentum, even though it is, again, baked into the physics of the game. I love other games that aren't Sonic that don't have momentum. The problem I have with Frontiers is that it's giving off jack of all trades vibes right now. It's got like a little bit of everything, but nothing is truly standing out. It's an open world that's been done before. This open world doesn't stand out more than other open worlds from other franchises, okay? It's got combat. Doesn't look bad, but it's not standing out compared to combat from other bigger franchises. It's got puzzles, and based on what we've seen so far, the puzzles don't stand out compared to other bigger franchises. It's got great looking shiny graphics, and that's probably the best thing it's got right now in my opinion. Not to say there aren't games that are graphically superior, because there are, but I wouldn't say graphically it's bad. The fact that they managed to get the game running on Switch still baffles me to this day. But Sonic was originally a platformer, right? Which means if there's gonna be an area where it stands out, it should be platforming, because multiple genres of games will borrow elements from other genres, right? There are action adventure games that have some little bits of platforming in them, but they're not platformers, so you don't expect the platforming to be on the level of the greatest platformers. And there are platformers that have shooting elements in them, but you don't expect the shooting to be on the level of actual shooting focused games, whether first person or third person, because that's not the main thing of the game. It's not the unique selling point of the game. So you can have jack of all trades combat, you can have jack of all trades graphics if you want, you can have jack of all trades story, like not the greatest story, not the greatest combat, you could have not the greatest puzzles, but you gotta have something that goes, okay, for this reason, this game stands out. And since Sonic is a platformer, you would assume that that would be the platforming, right? For the game to stand out, it needs a unique selling point. This is something that they say in like business. If you're starting up a business and you're competing against other businesses selling the same thing, what makes you stand out? What's your unique selling point? And this is where the debates ensue. This is like the classic fans who got mad at like the 2000s because the games had, I guess, less focus on momentum than in the 90s. And of course, the games in the 2010s had less focus on momentum than even before with the 2000s, etc, etc. A lot of hardcore classic fans believe that momentum was Sonic's unique selling point. And it's easy to see why if you've played, you know, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Knuckles. I'd argue Sonic 1 doesn't even focus that much on it aside from Green Hill and Starlight Zone. CD is, well, it's CD. But the thing is, when they were marketing the games, it wasn't as interesting to market the momentum, so they marketed the speed instead. If you look at adverts for like the classic Sonic games, they always sell you on how fast Sonic can go. So that became Sonic's #1 unique selling point to the eyes of the public, even though a lot of people actually liked other things about the game aside from the fact that you could go fast. And in a way, it's like Flanderization. Sonic has become a caricature of his former self. In the eyes of like Forces dashing like a maniac, like Luminous Forest is like, oh, okay, speed is the selling point of the franchise. Here is speed. Luminous Forest, dash like a maniac and go through this level. There were even people complaining that Frontiers was too slow. I never understood that, like how? Now, again, with the unique selling point, there's a difference between what the consensus of unique selling point is and what your personal unique selling point is for Sonic. There's people that play Sonic games because they like story more than anything else, more than the gameplay. I'm not one of those people, but for those people, they probably like the adventure era the most because those are the stories that I remember the most. If you played for momentum over everything else, you probably like the classics the most. If you play for speed more than anything else, you probably like the boost more than the other games. It depends on the reason in which you are playing Sonic, right? So when I say can Sonic Frontiers be good without momentum, yes it can. I don't think momentum is the be-all end-all of Sonic, but I do believe that would have been a unique selling point in an open world. In the instance that once we compare Frontiers to every other open world game in existence, or at least the big AAA well-received ones, what would make Frontiers stand out compared to the other ones? It's not speed, because there are fast open world games. Burnout Paradise came out in 2008, it's a racing game, but it's a fast open world racing game. So there are fast open world games out there, that's just one of many. It's not environments, because they're not using crazy Sonic environments. Like, they got like this greenish area, like the Kronos Island is something that could have been in another franchise. It doesn't look distinctively Sonic, which I'm fine with photorealistic Sonic, but I'm just saying the environment is not the selling point of this game compared to other open worlds. It's not the combat, we've established that. It's not the puzzles, we've established that. Is it the presence of cyberspace levels? Mario Odyssey was an open world game, and that had its own little sections of rooms where you could do platforming challenges. I don't think cyberspace is the selling point of the game either. I mean, the whole point of cyberspace is to be like the boost levels we've played in the past, specifically the Kishimoto ones like Colors and Forces. So had it had that pinball physics, that would have been the thing that made this open world game stand out from the others, where, oh, you can use this momentum to get up hills, you can go downhill and roll downhill, and you feel that it would essentially be Adventure 1 on a grander scale. But again, I just said before that you don't need that to make the game good. That just would have made the game stand out and essentially make it great. That's what would have taken the game to like a 9.5 out of 10 if they had been able to successfully implement that into the gameplay. But for me, what would have made the game be great, aside from that, if we're going to eliminate momentum as a possibility, which, I mean, I don't think it's really in the game on any significant level, for me, it's challenge. It's as simple as that. It's challenge, right? Not everyone wants games to be challenging. I get that. I don't even want all games to be challenging. There's other genres of games where I suck heavily, and I'm like, I don't want to be overly challenged. If I'm playing a fucking shooter game, I'm putting that shit on normal settings, no hard settings. It's only with like platformers that I crank up the settings, because I like that challenge. If I die a million times, I'll still keep going if I think the game is fun. That's why I loved Mario Maker, because you had so many different options of difficulty because everyone was making levels. Now, back in the olden days of gaming, most of the games are tough anyway. Like Crash 1, that shit's brutal, and I still fucking love that game. One of my favorite games of all time. Nowadays, difficulty options are the way you cater to giving challenge while not pissing off the people who don't want it. If we look at the best-selling PlayStation 4 games, God of War is up there. People consider that game to be challenging, and guess what? It's got difficulty options. The basic option says give me a story. Those who want to play for the story and they don't want to challenge themselves, then you got give me a balanced experience, then you got give me a challenge, and then you got give me God of War, which is obviously the toughest one. Marvel Spider-Man, one of the greatest games ever created, one of the highest selling games on PS4, has difficulty options, and I played it on the highest setting because I really wanted that challenge. I know that's not a platform, but I really wanted the challenge of that. That was a really fun game. Ghost of Tsushima, another one of the highest selling PS4 games, has difficulty options. You got easy, medium, hard, lethal, and then you've got the new game plus versions. And even if you look at best selling Nintendo Switch games, okay, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best selling Nintendo Switch game, and even that has difficulty options. I mean, the CC classes, I mean, most people are going to play 150 and 200. That's what I thought, but there's still a lot of people who like playing on 50 and 100. Smash Ultimate, one of the highest selling games on Switch, definitely difficulty. I mean, it's a fighting game, so the difficulty comes in your skill level. If you go online and you know you suck, you're going to get destroyed. It's as simple as that, but there's difficulty options. Now, admittedly, Super Mario Odyssey was not the hardest game. I'll give you that. In fact, out of easy platformers, that's probably the best one, because usually I wouldn't like a game that's that easy, but they had a way of at least respecting those who are good at the game by letting you do certain things quicker with your skill. But sure, getting to the end of that main game is not hard. Something like Darker Side, but with actual checkpoints, would have been my ideal difficulty for like the later parts of the game, but it is what it is. Now, Frontiers is going to be dabbling in some kind of difficulty options with the automation of certain combat elements and things like that, but what I'm really talking about here is the platforming. That's the thing that I'm really focusing on here, because that would be the selling point for me personally if there was tough levels in the game. And given that it's an open world, I'm guessing tough platforming in the open world as well. So far, I haven't seen anything that's given off that kind of engaging platforming vibe, right? I'm not saying it needs to be Crash 1, okay? But I've always been a fan of challenging platforming, and that is the thing that would make it stand out for me. And I haven't seen that part yet. This is why it's been hard for me to get hyped for Sonic Frontiers, because it's like, I can't really trash the game, right? It's not a horrible game, and we haven't seen the whole game again, but what I'm seeing right now is giving off jack of all trades vibes. platforming looks alright, combat looks alright, puzzles look alright, story we're yet to see, but nothing is like, okay, this thing is why this is gonna be amazing. When Sonic Unleashed came out, there was no game like it. If you played platformers, there was no game like Unleashed. I mean, the Werehog combat had been done before, again, in God of War, in other games. Hub Worlds had been done before in other games. Good CGI had been done before in other games. What did Unleashed have? It was the creation of the boost gameplay, at least in the main series, because obviously Rush had that. But like, the boost gameplay in 3D, that's what Unleashed did. That's why it stood out. Why did Sonic Adventure stand out? What made it different from what already existed, aka Super Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot 1, which were other big 3D origin stories? It was multiple things, actually. The multiple playable characters, which is something that those games didn't focus on. Like Mario 64, you just played as Mario, really. Crash 1, you just played as Crash. If we look at the most iconic 3D platformers of the 90s, Sonic Adventure is up there, next to Mario 64 and Crash 1, because it stood out. Mario 64 was the pioneer, so it set the standard. Crash 1 had its own lane as well. We're gonna be linear and tough. That's what you're gonna get with us. The gameplay is gonna be simple, linear, but the shit's gonna challenge you. That was its selling point. And with Sonic, its selling point was the grit. It's a platformer, but it's got this rock music. The soundtrack was far grander than what we heard in Crash 1 or Mario 64. This momentum, and it's weaved into the levels, it's weaved into the hub worlds. Essentially the thing that made Sonic great in 2D, and they just took and adapted it for 3D. Emphasis on story, even though we laugh at the cutscenes nowadays. If a game doesn't stand out for something, then it fades away very quickly. If the only reason you like this game is because Sonic's face is on it, then do you really like the game? If I were to ask you what your favorite Sonic games are, you're gonna pick games that stood out to you in some way, because if they didn't stand out, you wouldn't pick them as your favorites. Like, I love Adventure 1 because it has the best control in the franchise. Other reasons as well, but that's the biggest thing that makes it stand out. I love Adventure 2 for having the best rail physics in the entire franchise. I love Heroes for having the team-based mechanic in 3D, which, again, it got a Guinness World Record for that. I love Sonic Rush for being the pinnacle of 2D boost. Honestly, pinnacle of 2D Sonic entirely, if you ask me. And essentially pioneering a formula that we still use today. I love Sonic Generations for having some of the best open feeling level design in the whole franchise. I love 06 because it took plenty of the elements I loved from the Adventure era and did them again in high definition, which at the time stood out. There are things I think 06 did better than the Adventure games, and there's also things I think the Adventure games did better than 06. But that's the reason why I liked 06. Obviously it wasn't perfect, but I'm not going down that road right now. I want you guys to ask yourselves this question. What thing in Sonic Frontiers has not been done better by another game? Whether it's another Sonic game or another game in general. Name me one thing that this game has done where you're like, there is no game that has done that one thing better. The games that become masterpieces or very highly received games, I'm not just talking about 7 out of 10s where they scrape through. I'm talking about 8.5s, 9s, 9.5s. All these games do something special that no other game is doing. That's why games like Breath of the Wild did so well, and why so many games has taken inspiration from Breath of the Wild, even though it wasn't the first open world game by far. That's why Assassin's Creed stood out, because it took Prince of Persia and built upon it on a crazy level and added grandiose story and environments. But yeah, the summary of this video is to say that I don't think Frontiers will be bad because there's no momentum, and I don't think Frontiers will be bad, period. I do think Frontiers could be good or fun without momentum, but for it to be great, it needs some kind of gameplay mechanic that stands out, and momentum would have been it. For my own personal opinion, if it was challenging, then even without momentum, I could still really love it, but I haven't seen that thus yet. So for that reason, I just don't think it will be a masterpiece or an amazing game. I think it will be alright. I can't speak on what the critics will say, but from my perspective, based on what we've seen so far, Frontiers hasn't done anything truly special to stand out. I will still have fun with it when it comes out, I'm just not in love with it, that's all. Because when I play it, I'm gonna feel like levels are alright, but there's better Sonic levels in XXY game. Combat is alright, but I could play this other franchise or that other franchise for better combat. Control is alright, but I could play better controlling Sonic games. Puzzles are alright, but well, actually I don't really like puzzles that much, I'm not gonna lie, it's not my kind of thing. But there are better puzzles out there. Obviously you can only judge the game based on what it's trying to be, right? If they've made a conscious decision to not put momentum in there, I shouldn't penalize them for not having it, right? That makes logical sense. But Izuku's the one who went on record saying that he wanted this game to be as revolutionary as Sonic Adventure. And when I asked people what made Sonic Adventure stand out compared to its peers, people said the physics and the control, which includes the momentum. So if Izuka understood that, then you'd think that would be in an open world game, because at least you could say, yeah, there's gains of momentum, there's Sonic gains of momentum, but it's the first time we've had Sonic and momentum in an open world, right? But yeah, man, let me know what you guys think about this topic. Do you believe Sonic Frontiers could be good with or without momentum? And do you think Frontiers has a unique selling point compared to other open world games and other games within the Sonic franchise? And of course, a big shout out to all my channel members. If you want to become a channel member, you can click the join button next to the subscribe button. But yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell well, make sure to check out the non-Sonic channel. The link will be in the description. But that's all I have to say right now. So, Premy out.